I'm now going to talk about the three S's, what I call the three S's, which is based on the idea of the three R's, which is a Victorian educator came up with this idea: reading, writing, arithmetic. Well, that begins with an A, surely. Not if you put an apostrophe before it. Reading, writing, arithmetic was supposed to be the basics of an education. So I thought, well, let's see if we can find some way of making that, taking that idea for the piano. So I came up with the three S's: slowly, separately, and sections. Quite easy to remember. Excuse me. So what we're going to do is we're going to look first of all at slowly. Now, what does slowly mean? Well, it's something that we do when we learn the notes initially. If we can't process all the information on the page, we've got to find a way of understanding what the note is before we play it, and then we play it, and then we have to ask ourselves, was that the right note? Did I use the right finger? I sometimes call this the speed of no mistakes. And I feel a little diagram coming on here. What I do in the speed of no mistakes is there's a little kind of window here where I focus on what it is that I'm about to do. It may be as simple as I'm about to play a B flat with my fourth finger, mezzo piano. So that goes on here, and then there's a little part where I actually do the playing. So I do that thing, and then afterwards there's a little moment there where I evaluate, is what I did here what I wanted to do? In other words, did this match this? And I put a little tick or a little cross. If there's a little cross there, supposing I didn't play piano, or I played a B natural with my fourth finger instead of a B flat, then I would back up. Then there's another focus place here, which leads to another instruction. I'm now going to play a C with my fifth finger, and I'm going to play that somewhat firmer. And then there's the play bit. And then after that, there's the evaluation. Did I? Didn't I? Do you see how this works? So there's a little bubble before every single event in the speed of no mistakes, where we think what we're about to do it, and then evaluate it. So that may be super slow, really, really slow. The Pathetique Allegro. Do you see how slow that is in relation to the eventual tempo? But it enabled me to put everything in its right place. I was able to think about the fingering, I was able to think about shifting positions, I was able to hear the hands together. Are the hands together? Yes, coming here. Now, of course, I can't talk nearly as fast as I can think. So you may say, well, how have you got time to think about all these? It's just an awareness of what you're about to do. In other words, you don't have to verbalize it. You can't verbalize it. So it's just what happens in your mind. Play, evaluate. And we'll get back to that a little later when we talk about the feedback loop. So what is slow practice? How slow is slow practice? Well, I'm reminded of a story of the great Rachmaninoff, Rachmaninoff, the pianist. We tend to think of him as a composer. He was a very fine composer, but he was also a very fine concert pianist. He practiced his pieces that he already knew so slowly that colleagues didn't recognize the piece because it was so slow. So what was he doing? He was using the slow practice for maintenance. Which brings me to another analogy of beautiful gardens that we have in southwest London called Kew Gardens. And it's full of the most amazing examples of trees from all over the world, plants, shrubs, flowers. It's got glass houses. And the other thing it's got is gardeners. When you go there, you will see teams of gardeners all over the place, keeping that thing beautiful. And this is the maintenance, the idea of maintenance. So we don't just do the slow practice when we're first learning, when we can't actually play it fast. We tend to go back to it later, to keep things working really well. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about how to find the speed for somebody who might not really want or appreciate slow practice. I'm going to use a little example. What am I going to use? Well, let me use an example of a Bach jig, so which would go at this speed. That's the speed. Now, supposing I took that speed by half. That's exactly half the speed. That's a quarter of the speed. So in lessons, if you're a teacher, I'm not going to carry on doing that, but you get the idea. So you can find what speed it is you want, and then if you're a teacher, you can say, next week I'd like to hear the first part of that jig at half speed, or I'd like to hear the first part at half speed and then this section here from here to here at a quarter speed. So in other words, slow practice can be something very tangible. It doesn't have to be proportional either. You could log that with a metronome if you wanted to. But I like half, quarter and even eighth speeds for real controlled practice. We'll come back to slow practice later, but that's the first stage of slow practice.